Good morning everybody. I want to give a book review again, as our custom on a Sunday. I want to give a book review of one of my favourite books. It's called The Expository Dictionary of Biblical Words by W.E. Vine. Now I've had a copy of this dictionary all my life. In fact, I've had a number of copies and some of them have worn out over the years. It was originally published in 4 volumes in 1940, and it was the work of W.E. Vine, who had worked on it for 50 years. So it is a hugely important book for Christians to all have. It is, of course, a dictionary of Bible words, but it is an expository dictionary. So it's not just a dictionary, but it's a dictionary that explains and expounds the meaning of the New Testament words. It comes normally in a fairly large copy like this, and the forewords and the preface, the 2 forewords, there's a foreword by William Graham Scroggie, very famous Bible teacher, and also F.F. Bruce. So we have 2 very renowned and well-known scholars in their own right who write their introduction. I want to quote from both of them, and I want to quote from W.E. Vine himself, and I want to give a bit of a glimpse as to how the dictionary works. From Scroggie, he says, anyone who takes a serious and substantial contribution to the understanding of the New Testament renders a public service. For if religion is the foundation of morality, by the knowledge of God is the welfare of the people. As a book, the New Testament stands alone and supreme, simple in its profoundness and profound in its simplicity. It is the record of 27 writings of the original nature and progress of Christianity, and in the quality of its influence it has done more for the world than all other books together. He goes on to say, I do not hesitate to say that this expository dictionary more completely fulfills its design than any other such effort, in that it is at once a concordance, a dictionary, and a commentary. Now, a concordance is a list of words based upon the verses where they're found. It shows how the verses of Scripture, and in fact the words of Scripture, concord, how they all sing on the same tune. That's the idea. A dictionary then is obviously a book of words, and commentary means that not only do we have a list of the words and how they concord with each other, but also it explains them, produced in the light of the best available scholarship. So Scroggie then has very high praise for this book. Without encumbering this work with philosophical technicalities and extra biblical references, Mr. Vine puts at the disposal of the English reader the labours of a lifetime bestowed devoutly upon the New Testament. First, it shows in the language of the New Testament in words which present shades of meaning of some common idea, and then he gives an example of that. And then he goes on to say later, he says, secondly, this dictionary indicates the doctrinal bearing which the chosen words have. A case in point will be found on page 60, and gives an example there. Thirdly, he says this dictionary shows how very many New Testament words are compounds and how important are prepositional prefixes. Bit technical there. Fourthly, he says this dictionary is compiled in the light of the new knowledge which has come to us by the discovering of the papyri. During the last 50 years, this light has been brought to bear upon the New Testament with precious and priceless results. In olden days in Egypt, it was a custom not to burn waste paper, but to dump it outside the city, and the sands of the desert swept over it and buried it for centuries. A vast mass of such rubbish has lain there. However, in 1896 to 1897, Dr. Grenville and Dr. Hunt began digging at Oxyrhynchus and discovered a number of papyri, among which is a crumpled leaf written on both sides in uncial characters, which proved to be a collection of the sayings attributed to Jesus, Logia, which Dr. J. Hope Moulton believed to be genuine, and so on. And lastly, he says, I might have made reference also to entomological cross-reference and other values of this work, but perhaps enough is said to indicate its scope and usefulness. Mr. Vine has done a great service to the non-academic reader of the New Testament, and those also who are most familiar with the original tongue may learn much from these pages. Now, F.F. Bruce, he does a foreword to the one-volume edition. He says, nearly 20 years have gone by since the first edition of this expository dictionary was completed. During these years, the work has had ample opportunity to prove its worth as a handbook for serious students of the English Bible. The high hopes with which the enterprise was launched have been justified not only by the warm welcome each volume of the first edition received as it appeared, but also by the increasing sense of indebtedness which Bible students all over the world have felt as they have come to know its value in daily use. Mr. Vine has passed from our midst in the meanwhile, but his biblical ministry survives in a wide range of published works, at the head of which stands his expository dictionary. It is a welcome token of its continued usefulness that the publishers have now decided to reissue it in a one-volume edition. There is no work like this. The English reader with little or no Greek has, of course, the standard concordances, notably Wigram's Englishman's Greek Concordance, and the student of Greek has his Grimm, Thayer, Moulton, Milligan, and Bower. These works provide the lexical skeleton, but Mr. Vine's work clothes that skeleton with flesh and sinews by living exposition, and makes available for the ordinary reader the expert knowledge contained in the more advanced works. In fact, the expository dictionary comes as near as possible to doing for the non-specialist what is being done for the specialist by Kittel's Encyclopedic Theological Dictionary of the New Testament, a German work in several volumes and not yet completed. Now he goes on to say, Mr. Vine's Greek scholarship was wide, accurate, and up-to-date, and withal unobtrusive. Casual readers will hardly realize the wealth of ripe learning and the years of hard work with which they may reap the fruit of this work. To this, through the mastery of the classic idiom, the author added a close acquaintance with the Hellenistic vernacular and used his knowledge of both to illustrate the meaning of New Testament words. And bearing in mind the New Testament writers' familiarity with the Septuagint and its influence on their language, he has enhanced the value of his work by giving select references to Septuagint uses. He goes on to say at the end, there can be no true biblical theology unless it is based on sound biblical exegesis, and there can be no sound biblical exegesis unless a firm textual and grammatical foundation has been laid for it. Such a foundation is laid in this expository dictionary, and it proves much more than a foundation. The work is full of careful exegesis, and the student or teacher who makes its constant companion in the study of Scripture will find that he can afford to dispense with a large number of lesser aids. In fact, it is so valuable a handbook to the study of the New Testament that many of us who have learned to use it regularly wonder how we ever got on without it. It has established a well-deserving reputation for itself and really needs no special commendation than this. but it is a pleasure to commend it afresh and to wish it a long term of service in its new format. F.F. Bruce. Now, W. Vine himself wrote his own preface, and I'm going to read a couple of extracts from that. He says, to ascertain the exact meaning of words and phraseology of the originals of the Holy Scriptures is of great importance, particularly those which have a variety of meanings in English. The research work of the past 50 years, with the discovery of a large number of inscriptions and documents, and especially of the non-literary writings in the tombs and dust heaps of Egypt, has yielded much light upon the use and meaning of the language of the originals. The importance of the Egyptian papyri writings, etc., lies in the fact that they were written during the period in which the writers of the New Testament lived. Proof has thus been provided that the language of the New Testament was not a debased form of literary Greek corrupted by Hebrew idioms, but that in the main it was vernacular, the speech of everyday life of the people in the countries which came under Greek influence through the conquests of Alexander the Great. As a result of these conquests, the ancient Greek dialects became merged into one common speech, the Koine, or Common Greek. In one form, this language became the literary Koine, or Hellenistic, of such writings as Josephus. In its spoken form, it was the everyday speech of millions of people throughout the Greco-Roman world, and in the providence of God, it was under these conditions and in this world language that the New Testament was written. Later on he says, the present volumes were produced especially for the help of those who do not study Greek, although it is hoped that those who are familiar with the original will also find it useful. The work is of an expository character, comments being given on various passages referred to under the different headings, and the doctrines of Scripture are dealt with at some length. The notes are provided on matters historical, technical, and entomological. Let me just quote a little bit later on. In conclusion, he says this: it is with a sense of deep gratitude that I express my indebtedness to my friend Mr. F.F. Bruce for his wholehearted assistance in going through the typescript and making corrections and valuable suggestions previous to its being printed. In proofreading subsequently, whose efficiency as a classical scholar and whose knowledge of the originals has enhanced the value of the work. I trust that notwithstanding imperfection and limitations of treatment, the work may afford assistance to Bible students in enabling them to increase in their knowledge of God and His Word, and in helping them to equip them in their use and ministry of the Holy Scriptures. This is W.E. Vine, and it just says Bath. That's where W.E. Vine was residing in these years. So we have an amazing book in our hands, and I heartily commend it to all Bible students. If we take a very simple look at a typical entry, there's the entry for abide. If you take a look at the entry for abide, you'll notice that the English word abide or abode has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe 13 Greek words that the English word abide or abode comes from. That's quite astounding, isn't it? So of those 13 words, 12 of them are verbs and one of them is a noun. So we have meno, we have epimeno, katiameno, parameno, hupameno, prosmeno, diatribo, anastrapheo, leizomai, agroleo, histomai, and hoimai, and mon. So all of these are Greek words, and in each of the references you will have, in capitals, you will have the Greek word in the way in which it's normally spoken in English. Then you will have the actual Greek in its original script, And then you will have A, B, C, so we'll have a lot of references to the different ways in which the words are used. And then it is full of copious scriptures. Not all of the scriptures related to a particular word are given, so it's not completely exhaustive in that sense. But it is incredibly, incredibly useful. And he's not only just giving us the meaning of a word, but he's giving an explanation as to how the words are used and what the words mean in terms of the New Testament. So we have the most amazing book that's put into the English into our hands. This is available, by the way, online as a free reference book, and I very often will use the online version. It just saves me having to get the book down off my shelf. It is incredibly, incredibly useful. So I heartily commend it to you. It is Vine's Expository Dictionary of New Testament Words. Well, God bless you. I look forward to speaking to you again next week, and I wish you a wonderful week. Bye for now.